I'm Jason. My family and I live in a small jungle village in Papua New Guinea, one of the most isolated places on earth, and I tell stories. Welcome to Yahweh's Canoe. Let me tell you about the most interesting question I've ever been asked. And I've got 4 kids, so I've been asked lots of strange and interesting questions. But this was in the early days of language learning in Wabuku. One morning I left my house and went to Dowo's house. Climbed up his log ladder, went inside, sat down, and everybody was eating breakfast. They slid over to me 2 banana leaves. In the first banana leaf was this dark gray, super sticky substance, sago or saksak. And in the second banana leaf was a full fish, but its skin was blackened and hardened like it had been sitting in the fire all night long. And one of the fish's eyes had hardened and popped out like a big white marble, just staring you in the soul. I looked around and I did what everyone else was doing, picking off the skin of the fish, grabbing a little bit of fish meat, mixing it with a glob of this saksak, and then eating it. Saksak was sticky and hard to get down your throat, didn't really have a taste, not altogether pleasant at first. The fish too was just full of bones, just riddled. It was hard to pick the bones out. So I was choking on a bunch of those bones, trying to spit out the rest. They were laughing at me. But after not too long, thankfully, everyone else had finished eating their breakfast. They were all standing up, getting ready to go wherever they were going to go. They were cleaning off their hands too by rubbing their fingers strong in their hair to get the stickiness of the saksak off. So I stood up, was getting ready to go, and then Dowo said to me, "Mawo moote, aniswe no kore memi na moote," which means, wait a minute, I have some talk. After everybody leaves, I have something I need to say. I felt the feeling of nervousness just sit in my stomach. I was already understanding so little of what I was seeing and hearing that to be put on the spot with a private conversation just made me extra nervous. Finally, everybody left to go where they were going to go, some to the bush, some to the gardens, some to the river to fish. And it was just Dowo and I sitting in his house. I was sitting by the fire. I remember watching the smoke just kind of slowly rise through the thatched roof. And he sat down next to me. He sat quiet for a moment. I could tell he was planning what he was going to say. And then he scooted close to me. He scooted close and then he leaned in until our noses were about touching. And he whispered his question. He said, "Ore wari wan ni miari obaye," which means, which ancestor spirit are you? I responded with a phrase that I had already learned, "Obiotu kwa moyayamam," which means, sorry, but I'm confused. So he just leaned in again, forehead to forehead, and he whispered his question again. "Uruakeni, ore wari wan ni miari obaye." Tell me, which ancestor spirit are you? And I knew the answer to his question, but in that moment, I didn't know how to answer him. And so I said, "No, I'm not an ancestor spirit. I'm just a person. I've got a mother and a father, a brother and a sister. I'm not an ancestor spirit." He sat back and he nodded, and he seemed a little disappointed. And then he tried a different way. He said this, "Man ayawan denati wai mare matore mam," which means, I want to see my father's face. And I said, "Your father, I don't know if I've met your father. I'm not sure I know who your father is." He said, "Noko yata okore idom." No, he died a long time ago. So I responded with that phrase again, "Obiotu kwa moyayamam." Sorry, but I'm confused. And now I could see a look of annoyance or frustration on his face. And he said this to me. He said, "I know you have a picture machine, and with your picture machine, you can see the faces of the dead. I want to see my father's face." My mind is reeling, but I realized he was talking about my computer. So I responded to him. I said, "My picture machine doesn't have that power. If I had snapped a photo of your father, then I could show you, but I don't have a picture of your father." He was visibly annoyed with me now, frustrated. And he said, "Okay, when you talk to my father on your picture machine, can you ask him a question for me?" I said, "Dowo, I can't talk to your father with my computer, my picture machine. But I'm curious, what question would you want me to ask him?" And he said, when you talk to my father, ask him this: where in the bush does the copper appear? Copper is in tin roofing for your house. All at once, a lot of things became clear. First of all, that he knew I was a dead ancestor spirit. One of their ancestors who had died returned to a new body. How else do you explain how I look? And as a dead ancestor spirit, I could commune with the dead, and I had these secrets of the afterlife, like where do the things, where does stuff appear magically in the bush that could help them for wealth and prosperity. Things like copper for his house is a status. Copper for your house is a status, or a marker of status here in the village. It means you're a big man, you're wealthy. So he thought I was an ancestor spirit with these secrets of the afterlife. But not only that, I realized that he thought I was withholding this from him. That I knew this information, but I was choosing not to help him. All this was just flowing around in my brain, and all I could think to say was, sorry, my picture machine doesn't have the power. I can't do what you're asking. He sat back, quiet, frustrated with me. And after a moment of silence again, he stood up. And I took that as my invitation to leave. He walked to the door, I followed him, went back down his log ladder, left his house, took a few steps away. I looked over my shoulder, and I saw that he had sat down again by the fire, and he didn't look up again. And as I left his house, I just had this frustration, this sadness even, this confusion. We came to Wabuku telling them we're here to bring them the Creator's talk. But now I understood how Dowo understood that. He thought, as dead ancestor spirits, we have secrets from the afterlife. The Creator Spirit has given us secrets to bring back to them. Secrets that'll help them with things, with stuff that can help them with their lives now, to give them status and wealth and prosperity. That's how he understood our being there. And not only that, but now Dowo thought I was a liar. Dowo knew I had these secrets, but was choosing to withhold them from him and telling him I don't have these secrets. I remember praying to God, asking, God, what am I supposed to do? What do I do? Do I go back in and try to explain to him that I'm telling the truth? I'm not an ancestor spirit. I don't have these secrets. I don't know where the copper magically appears in the bush. Or do I just let this misunderstanding linger for a while? Is that part of the process? But if Dowo's thinking this way, it's probably not just him. Maybe every man, woman in Wabuku is thinking the same thing. Maybe Dowo's just the only one brave enough to ask me about it, even if it's in secret when he's asking me. I remember thinking, man, did we come here under false pretenses? How can I possibly overcome this obstacle? We're on completely different pages about how the world works and why we're here at all. How is this possibly going to be overcome? I was asking God for direction. God, what do I do here? I didn't hear any answer from the Lord in that moment. So I just went on to the next house. Walked up another ladder, had some more fish, some more sack, and had some more conversations, answered more questions of which I had no idea what they were talking about.